We're building an aluminum expeditionary catamaran from scratch, our future home and the biggest project we have ever taken on. And this is what 365 days looks like.
In April of 2024, about 9 tons of CNC-cut 5083 marine-grade aluminum was delivered to our shop, and we began the process of sorting and preparing the thousands of individual pieces. Of this initial 9 tons, about 1.5 tons would be recycled, and the remaining 7.5 tons would become our new floating home. Each component was etched with a number, noting its purpose and place in the boat. The pieces were laid out to form the frames, which span the width of the hulls. We have 16 frames in all, evenly spaced 1 meter apart the entire length of the boat. The welding process we're using is double pulse MIG welding that utilizes argon gas. Each frame was equally spaced and aligned on a strung back, which supports and holds the frames in place until they can be welded. The alignment was carefully done to millimeter accuracy using lasers. Next, each individually cut longitudinal stiffener was cleaned and placed. These stiffeners add a huge amount of strength, tying the frames together and eventually giving us a surface to weld our hull plates onto. The first hull plates to go on were the bottom of the bridge deck. This phase of fabrication is done with the boat upside down, making placement and welding of the hull plates much easier using gravity. The rudder scags were single pieces and a bit too heavy for us to position by hand. This will serve as a strong point for our rudders and propeller tubes to attach to. We then began the process of placing each individual hull plate. We opted to go with 6 mm thick aluminum hull plates, giving us extra strength and rigidity. Once each plate was placed and aligned, they were first tacked and then welded in place, inside and out. For this, we used both TIG and MIG welding, depending on the location. This machine is our trusty old English wheel and is used to form each hull plate to a specific shape and curve based on templates provided with our kit. It took about 3 weeks in total to wheel all the plates. As they were finished, we welded them into place to form the structure of the boat. After about 4 months of solid work, our whole structure was nearly complete. We welded on the underwing girders, each requiring more than 200 feet of welding on their own. These add strength and rigidity to our bridge deck, and will give us a solid place to attach lifting points so we can flip her over and continue on with the next phase of the build. As the final hull plates were prepared, we began fabricating the structure that would eventually become our longeron and crossbeam, which holds together the bows of our catamaran. Each day we get 2 breaks, affectionately known as smoko here in Australia. We get to have a cup of coffee, a bite to eat, and share a few laughs. But before we know it, it's back to the grind. We reached a major milestone when the last large hull plates went on, and we got to see the shape of our slender, wave-piercing bows. Because it's too narrow at the very front to weld from the inside, a process known as plug welding was used. With all the hull plates in place, it was time to fully weld the stiffeners to the hull plates. We did all the top welds at this stage, while the boat was still upside down. We also started to sand the aluminum to get the look we wanted, using gravity to our advantage before we flipped her over. With our date for flipping the hull fast approaching, it was time to do the final outside welding on the plate seams, and a bit more sanding on those plates that would be much harder to reach when she's right side up. Finally, we reached a major milestone in the project, and the cranes moved in to flip her right side up. She was then moved back into the shed, right side up, so the decks and superstructure could be welded on. Before the decks were laid on, we placed the large bus bar that will become the backbone of our electrical system. The bus bar is the equivalent of 500 millimeters squared of solid copper and will carry about 50 kilowatts of power from our battery bank to the electric motors in each hull. As the weeks flew by, the decks and salon top began to take shape, piece by piece. Delos 2.0 was finally starting to look like a boat. The roof of Delos will support 5 kilowatts of solar panels, and the entire surface will catch water to fill our tanks. The bows are thin and meant to pierce through the waves. The first 1 meter, or about 3 feet, is a very strong collision bulkhead that's fully sealed. Behind that is an additional 4 meter watertight compartment that will eventually become my shop and storage. Soon enough, the welding of the hull plates was finished, and we performed a number of tests to check the integrity. Filling the holes with water and looking for leaks allowed us to test the internal watertight bulkheads and plate welds at the very same time. As the hull fabrication phase neared completion, it was time to move her to the shed next door, which would be her home while the interior and systems fit-out phase began. Our propulsion system will be a diesel-electric hybrid system, utilizing a Nanny N480 diesel engine and 2 25-kilowatt electric motors from Combi Systems. The interior fit-out officially began with the installation of internal non-structural bulkheads and supports for the flooring. Kaz and I are on site every day, all day. Not only do we do a lot of the work ourselves, but we constantly work with Dan and his team to refine the design and discuss ideas about the interior fit-out. Internal components like floors and non-structural bulkheads are fabricated out of a plastic honeycomb material covered in a thin layer of fiberglass. It's incredibly strong, impervious to water, and about 1/2 the weight of traditional marine plywood. Ventilation is incredibly important for the engine rooms. We allow the engine to draw in cooler, fresh air naturally to the bottom of the engine room, and the hot air at the top that is not used during the combustion process is drawn out with an extraction fan. Our floor peaks in Delos 2.0 are about 4 meters, nearly 13 feet long. They're accessible from watertight doors in the cabins or from the deck. Here, Dan is fabricating some very beautiful ladders for deck access through the hatches. The port hull will be our guest hull with the kids' cabin. Our galley is also on the port side, so this framework will support our induction stove, oven, and galley cabinetry. Here you're seeing Sierra's kids' cabin come to life, complete with bunk beds for sleepovers and lots of storage. The perfect time to route crucial hoses for systems is now. So here I am routing our fuel fill, vent, and supply hose. And also the hoses that will transport our toilet wastewater, drinking water, and gray water. All the wall liners are attached using a fast-mount system, meaning they're all removable for service and maintenance of the systems and hull. We really hope you enjoyed this time-lapse of our build so far. It's incredible to think just how far we've come in only a year. It's a real testament to the skills of Stradbroke Yachts, whom we feel incredibly lucky to have as our builder. We've just reached the halfway point in the project, so if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button. Or even better yet, head on over to patreon.com/svdelos, where you can get more patrons-only videos, early release content, and chat directly with Kaz and myself about the build and all things sailing related. Thanks for watching.